But yeah, whenever I start premarital counseling, and by the way, I mean, in the Antiochian Archdiocese, if you want to get married, you have to go through premarital counseling. And for those of you all who are not Orthodox and maybe don't even want to become Orthodox, the best thing that the best advice that I could give you if you want to get married, get premarital counseling. Get it either from a pastor, get it either from a psychologist, get it from a marital counselor, somebody. Because premarital counseling really opens up what it's like to be married. And, you know, granted, and I say this as a married man, marriage will definitely change your life. And, you know, after the honeymoon period is off, you're going to wake up next to this man or woman and wonder, what did I do? You know, sort of thing. Not in a bad way, but just wondering, like, what happened. But I mean, it was useful because I didn't know what it was like to live with somebody. I mean, I lived in college, you know, in a dorm just by myself, and so I was a bachelor for essentially 4 years after I got out of school. But I mean, living with someone, and you know, and I'm not talking about cohabitation. I'm talking about marriage. It's a lot different. You know, I've done premarital counseling with people, and one of the things that I do is planning a budget. It's one of the things that I'll do, and that I do with them, because, and I'll talk later on about some of the things that will kill marriage when we get to divorce.
But does the wedding always have to take place in the church?
Yes, absolutely.
So it's not like modern?
No, it's not like modern day. I've had people ask me, well, can we do it on a boat? Can we do it? You know, I said, no, you can't do it on a boat. You can't do it in a plane. You can't do it in the rain. You know, you have to do it in the church because it's a sacrament of the church. You know, so that's just how it is. But I'll talk a little bit later about some of the things that will kill a marriage, and one of the things that kills a marriage is money. Is people not knowing what to do with their money, how to plan a budget, where do we invest our money in? Are we going to invest, you know, if we have kids, are we going to invest in a college fund, or are we going to rely on them to take out loans? Are we going to rely on them to go into the military and pay that way off? It's stressful, and that's one of the things that will kill marriage, and we'll talk about that in a minute. Man is not meant to be alone. That's one of the aspects that marriage teaches, is that we were meant to have a partner. We were meant to be together. We were communal beings. What did Aristotle say about man, his definition of man? His definition of man was, I think it was a featherless, two-legged being.
Biped.
Biped, yeah. That is social.
Yes, social was the thing.
Right. Or I think it was does politics.
Yes, it's in his politics
right.
that he gives that.
But ultimately what he was saying is that we're social beings and that we're really not meant to be solitary. I mean, even the Orthodox concept of heaven, of the kingdom, is communal. It's not singular like it is in Islam. You get your own little, in Islam you get your own little garden, you know, with wine and virgins and whatnot. That's nowhere in Christianity. You know, as Dostoevsky said, you know, being in hell is to be alone. Now, you know, but what about monasticism, and what about, you know, hermits? Well, hermeticism isn't for everybody. In fact, usually hermeticism is only given to certain monks where their habit for sure knows that they can handle this. And even then, monks will often go at least once a month to go and check on them, to make sure, you know.
Don't they often come back to the church for
communion? Yeah.
Yes, for the liturgy.
Yeah. Sorry about that. Odd. So anyway, but yes, they often come back to the church for communion and for liturgy. So again, there's that communal aspect. Marriage ultimately is a representation of Christ's mystical marriage with his church. Marriage is an icon of that. And with that in mind, there's this idea of the family as being the first church, as being the small church, where with the father being at its head and the wife being his priestess and with his children and raising them in that way.
Priestess has a pagan sound to it. What do you really mean by
Well,
that?
I don't want to say priestess, but I guess it's just his consort. But also sharing the body.
Yeah,
sharing the same body.
you meant something by priest. I mean, there's a sense in which
there's
I
a
think
sense
that's
that
a
we're all.
useful
I
idea.
think that we're all called to be priests. I didn't mean that in a pagan way, but as a consort to the husband, as a helpmeet, as a helpmate.
Well,
I suppose.
when I'm teaching, I always have a lot of trouble with students who have this firmly individualistic idea of what humanity is. And they have trouble with the idea that marriages were often arranged by families in past times, and still are in some cultures. But I try to point out to them that this person, in a world where life was truly a struggle, this person was your one reliable ally.
Right.
Day and night, in earning your living. It was never the man went off to the office and earned his living. The living was earned in the home.
Right.
Whether you were a farmer or a blacksmith or whatever you were, both people and all the children participated in the earning of the living. And so it was really a level of involvement with each other that most of us can't really imagine. And that's what's natural to us, is we are allies in everything. And there's not really a sense of being on your own. It's just not there.
I just recently reread Ken Follett's book, Pillars of the Earth, which takes place in medieval England.
Yeah, I've read that.
They're
That's the cathedral
the
book that you were
cathedral,
talking
yes,
about.
that I mentioned earlier. And there's this one scene at the beginning of the book where the mother dies in childbirth. And there's just this sense of desperation, not just sadness that the mother's died, but this sense of desperation as in, what are we going to do now?
Yeah.
And, now the father is faced with here's someone who's probably supplementing his income, whether it's doing other things or handicrafts or whatnot. But also, not only that, he has no way to feed his infant child. And they end up giving, they expose the child, and a monk ends up finding the child and raises the child as a monk. And I think the child ends up later on, he ends up becoming the next prior. But yeah, there was that sense of desperation that.
But because
that
you really
they don't have life insurance.
You could not handle life on your own.
Right, you couldn't handle life on your own. And that's why monasticism was, you either got married or you became a monk. And even then, in monasteries, this was the same in Byzantium as it was the same in the West. You had to pay a dowry to get into a monastery, or at least give whatever savings you had, to put it into the monastic fund so that everyone could share it. I'll go over the marriage service now in the Orthodox Church, which is very different than Western marriages. I guess to reiterate, or to remind everybody, the marriage service used to take place in liturgy. But at one time in the church, that was separated. The marriage service became much more privatized. There is huge debates between theologians as to whether or not it should be reintroduced back into liturgies. I kind of think it should, just because I think that with communion being the queen of all sacraments, communion seals the bond. And I think that's important.
In the way that it is now, can it be done in a liturgical context? Or would there have to be kind of...
Technically, yes, but I think now you would have to have a blessing from a bishop, but it's just, yeah. So, the first part of the marriage, or the marriage service, is the betrothal. Now, at one time, the betrothal was done separate from the marriage service. In fact, in ancient Byzantium, the betrothal service could have happened when the two people were children, if it was an arranged marriage.
That happened in the West.
Right,
Just
it happened
not often,
in the
yeah.
West too, but now the betrothal and the coronation have to be together. They have to flow into each other. So in the betrothal service, there's an exchange of rings. And traditionally, Orthodox Christians wear wedding bands on their right hand. Now a lot of people wear them on their left.
So all that.
Usually on the reason why in the West they wear it on their left is because there's this belief that there is a vein that flows
yes.
from the finger that connects to the heart. In the East, the reason why you wear it on your right hand, your right ring finger, is because this is the hand of power. This is the hand of authority. It's sinister, dexter. That, and in the East, you did certain things with your left hand that you didn't do with your right. So it's kind of the reason why. But anyway, so there's an exchange of rings. They settle the groom's finger and take the ring of the groom and put it on the bride's finger, and vice versa, and he'll switch it and to unite the couple. And it's very, very similar to a baptismal service in that both the couple take the epitrachelion, the stole of the priest, and they're led by the priest into the onto the solea, the main portion of the church in the middle. So there's this aspect that the betrothal, if you really think about it theologically, it happens in the world, which is where the back of the church is. That's what the back of the church represents, the world. So these two people, they've met in the world, and now they're being joined into the kingdom of God. And that's where the crowning takes place.
Okay, so they start probably by the doors of the church.
By the doors of the
and
church,
they're
yes.
brought down the aisle to
Correct.
right in front of the altar.
Usually if our church was built according to Orthodox architecture, it would happen in the narthex.
Uh-huh.
So we would do the betrothal in the narthex, and then
That
the doors would be open.
clearer what you
And
were doing, yeah.
right, people go in, yeah. So the main portion of the marriage service is the coronation with crowns. In the Russian tradition, crowns are usually made out of silver or gold. They're usually very big, heavy things on sticks. In the Greek tradition, they're usually made out of flowers and laurel or leaves, vegetal. And again, it's just sort of like the exchange of the rings. The bride and the groom, the priest, change their crowns. And then finally the crown is put on the right head. And there are two aspects that are going on with the crowning. One is that the man and the woman are sort of monarchs, not only of creation, but of their house. The second aspect is that the crowns represent martyrdom. Marriage is martyrdom. Marriage is dying to oneself in order to live for another, in order to live for Christ. And so there's this aspect that they're being crowned with martyrs' crowns, just as martyrs are often depicted with their crowns after dying for Christ. Towards the end of the coronation service, a cup of sweet wine will be shared between the bride and the groom. And two things are also going on here. First one is that the cup of wine represents life. Life is best served shared. It's best meant shared. And so that's why the cup of wine is shared between the two. Like the wine, like life. And also there's this other aspect that the cup of wine may be something that replaced the Eucharist.
Do you suppose when that was part of the Eucharist that they actually took the Eucharist at
I believe
at that
so,
point?
yes. Though that gets into some debate in the liturgics of the marriage service and existing marriage services that we have going back to ancient Byzantium. But like in a baptism, they would have been the first people to take communion at that liturgy.
Right.
And traditionally in Byzantium, and in the early church with the crowns, the Greek crowns would only have a string that are tied together. And during your honeymoon, traditionally during your honeymoon, you would wear those crowns. So your wife would go where you went, where your wife went. So if she'd go to the bathroom, I guess you'd go with her. I don't know. And then later you would come back to the church to remove your crowns after your honeymoon. And then the crowns are taken off and they're placed in a box, usually in your prayer corner. And I always tell people that do this with their crowns, that when a spouse dies, a family member or the other spouse is supposed to cut that ribbon and then take that crown and have the priest put it on their head before he closes the casket.
Oh, that's wonderful.
So that he has that crown, or she has that crown. Widows and widowers in the church. Typically, people who are widowed are encouraged not to get married. They're encouraged to remain celibate for the rest of their life. This is sort of even seen with priests. If something, God forbid, were to happen to my wife, I could not remarry and keep my priesthood. If I wanted to get remarried, I would have to ask to be laicized. With lay people, remarriage is allowed up to 2 times. So 3 strikes, you're out. Now we get into, and with widows and widowers, there's this aspect that marriage is an eternal thing. There was a bishop that I met, I can't remember which jurisdiction he was, but he was married, and he wore his wedding band. And there was this sort of, I asked him, I said, well, why do you wear your wedding band? You're not married anymore. And he's like, it's like, there is still kind of this thing where I am still married. He says, but my wife's just in another place.
So he was a widower then?
Right. So he was a priest, and then his wife died, and he became a bishop.
So why do they not discourage it if you're a widow?
Why do they not discourage?
Why do they discourage them getting married?
Why do they discourage? I think they discourage it because marriage is this lasting bond that goes even into eternity, and that really we're supposed to be married only one time. But the church allows remarriage as an economia, as a mercy, because of our human weaknesses and our failings. That brings us to divorce. As I said, marriage in its essence is indissoluble. And divorce, according to the church, is a sin and it's evil. Marriages weren't meant to end in divorce. But divorce happens. And so normally when 2 people divorce in the Orthodox Church, there is a time of penance when both both people in that relationship will refrain from receiving Holy Communion for a time. And then, after a time of healing, they're allowed to receive communion. Now, if they want to remarry, there's usually a process. They have to petition the archdiocese, it has to be granted, and then there is a marriage, a wedding. Just as a reminder, though, marriage, the second marriage is not as joyful as the first marriage.
Is the ceremony the same?
The ceremony is in a way the same, but there is a prayer that the priest will say before the crowning, which asks God to forgive the couple of their sins, if any sin was committed, and that as sort of a reminder that what they're doing really isn't meant to be, I guess, but that this is something that the church has allowed as a mercy. And so, marriage, second and third marriages are an economia, a mercy. And again, remarriage is allowed up to 2 times. 3 strikes, you're out. You can't get married, you can't have a church wedding. Now, that brings me to divorce. Some of the things that will end a marriage, and I can discuss this with you right now. There are several things that will kill a marriage. And this is what I tell people in premarital counseling. The first one that will kill marriage is sex. Sex will kill marriage. Now, don't take that wrong, because sex is necessary in marriage. But if 2 people get married just because they're attracted to each other, statistically, how long will they stay together? Guess. 2 years. That's right, 2 years. Ding, ding, ding. Yeah, 2 years. Sex will only fuel a marriage for about 2 years. If the couple doesn't have anything in common, if they can't relate to if they can't get beyond sex, it only lasts 2 years.
Well, what I thought you were going to say, maybe you are going to say, is that disagreements about sex, about what to do, when to do, etc., could become pretty nasty.
Could become a problem. It could become very nasty. That's why if the marriage doesn't have any other foundation, it just comes apart. Now, another thing that will kill marriage is money. What to do about money, where do we invest our money, having too much money, having too little money, things like that. That's why I normally always, when we do premarital counseling, I always discuss planning a budget and adhering to a budget. Even if that couple is very, very wealthy, I tell them you need to plan a budget. Because then you get into other aspects as to what are we going to do with our money? And are we all going to? And I had one couple get into a fight over this. Are we going to purchase the same hygiene products, or are we going to have his and her shampoo? I'm not joking. I'm not kidding. I mean, this was like a serious thing.
But fights can break over real trivialities.
Right. And again, this gets into the aspect of living together again.
Our first fight was over Christmas ornaments. I don't remember what we were disagreeing about, but it was over Christmas ornaments, and we realized, oh my gosh, we've just had a fight.
Right. We're arguing about Christmas ornaments.
Yes, I have no idea what the issue was.
And the third one is children. Not to say that, I believe that the ultimate byproduct of marriage should be children, but oftentimes you'll see marriages struggle when there's usually infertility issues, or when children get older and what to do about children, and so it's always good to be in concert as to what to do.
Why, for you and your husband have strong disagreements or different ways in which you interact with the children.
Right.
the children know that,
Mhm.
and they will play.
Yes,
They
they'll
will
play.
play upon your differences and your struggles.
So,
They'll know that mom will say yes for certain things.
لست أقول سرك لأعدائي ولا أعطيك قبلة رشة مثل